The playoff round is kicking off in exactly 1 week. Yes, it's back already. Champions League running throughout the season rather than that 2-ish month break it used to take, right? Now, there's actually some excellent matchups in these playoffs, aren't there? We'll go through each of them one by one, give you my thoughts on each. But before that, thank you to everyone who joined me for the Arsenal versus Man City watch along on BigUp, which was a ton of fun. I was able to pull up the tactics board, show you guys highlights from other matches. And hey, we even had one of you guys call in at halftime. Shout out Brazilian Fury for giving us the lowdown on Vitor Reis. So that's where my Champions League watch-alongs will be going forward. So use the link below to join the Rabona TV community over on BigUp. You won't regret it. It's a great platform. Sporting and Borussia Dortmund, actually quite the equal matchup. Both teams have had their issues recently. Both teams have sacked at least one manager, 2 in Sporting's case. And both were early contenders to make surprise appearances in the top 8 of this competition before settling further down the table. I mean, much further down in Sporting's case. So now, in a season that started with Nuri Sahin and Ruben Amorim, we're looking at Niko Kovac at Borussia Dortmund and Rui Borges with Sporting. Borges took over at the end of December and has overseen 5 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. Notably, 1 loss came in the Champions League, where Sporting have had a horrible downturn since Amorim left, losing 2-1 away to RB Leipzig and handing Leipzig their first and only points in the competition. But as far as domestic competitions go, yes, he lost the League Cup final in a shootout to Benfica, so that's not terrible, and they have been undefeated otherwise. Much, much better than the horrible 4-match losing skid that João Pereira had them on. That was disgusting form. Borges has tightened them up defensively since then, more or less, with 4 clean sheets since taking over, but they needed a 77th minute equalizer against Bologna at home to ensure they made it into the playoff rounds of this competition, where they have been good in Portugal. They have struggled for goals in Europe still, even Victor Gyökeres, to a certain degree at least. He's leveled out a bit from his superhuman form that he was in under Amorim, but he still scored in 5 consecutive matches recently and is still a threat in setting up his teammates. However, he's out injured with a thigh problem right now, but he shouldn't be back in too long. And in his stead, Harder has been scoring some goals. Speaking of goals, Borussia Dortmund boasts the joint top scorer in this competition is Serhou Guirassy, who's actually scored from open play in 3 consecutive matches now, after he had struggled to do so since the beginning of November. Only one of those matches was under Niko Kovac, however, as he took the reins on the 29th of January, so he's only overseen the win away to Heidenheim. And right away, we saw Niko Kovac change to his preferred 3 at the back against Heidenheim, and things looked a bit sketchy in that second half against the relegation fighters. But that's kind of what you get from Niko Kovac, right? He likes his team to sit deep like that. Hasn't really had great success since he was at Eintracht Frankfurt. He was very average at Bayern, Monaco, and Wolfsburg. So you have a guy that is looking to find himself at a club looking to find themselves. That concerns me a bit, but maybe they're going to be an unlikely perfect match. Their squad still concerns me even more, though, as they have brought in Chukwuemeka, yes, but they're still very light at the back, I find. For me, it feels like it's still a bit too early for Kovac and Dortmund, and with their squad issues, I feel like Sporting is at the advantage, especially if Gyökeres will be back in time for that first leg. But even then, Konrad Harder is still strong, so for me, advantage Sporting. Stade Brestois, what a team. Let me say this, they have already won. They won last season when they qualified for this tournament, so to be at this stage of the tournament, they're playing with house money, man. I think the reaction Pierre-Louis Melou when he was being interviewed after the final league phase match says it all. When he was informed of the potential teams he would play, and I mean, he went on to say that it would be a shame to play PSG, both for the competition and for us, as in because for the competition, you want to see teams from other nations playing against each other, not the same nation. And the for us part is because Stade Brestois don't have a great record against PSG. In fact, just this past weekend, they played each other, of which PSG won 5-2 away to Stade Brestois. And now they'll face each other in the UCL. Despite all of my belief in King Eric, it looks as though the squad are struggling with the demanding schedule of playing midweek, then on the weekend, over and over and over again all season long. Previously, they would only have had to do that when it came to domestic cup matches, but this is a whole new level of demanding for them. Because keep in mind, they also don't play their home matches in the Champions League at home. They have to travel to Guingamp for that as well. PSG, on the other hand, are seemingly trending in the right direction now, and they've also added Kvicha Kvaratskhelia to their squad. Don't forget, that's a big signing. Some figuring out to do there, as Kvicha starting meant Barcola will play on the right, as they did against Stade Brestois this past weekend, and you aren't getting the best out of Barcola in that kind of setup, right? But regardless of the wings, Ousmane Dembele is playing brilliantly at the moment, occupying more central areas at times, but still floating to that favored right side. But it's overall his finishing that has really taken off, as he got another hat-trick this past weekend, making it hat-tricks in 2 consecutive matches for Dembele. For Dembele, man, the guy whose finishing was wayward at best at times, so that's unbelievable to see. PSG had an average age of 24.8 in their starting 11 against Stade Brestois, which tells you a lot about how they are building for the future now and are starting to thrive under Enrique. They seem like they're changing their mental fortitude for the better, and I think they'll ease past Stade Brestois. The last time Brest beat PSG was in the 84-85 season. Completely different times for both teams, but if this is the end for Stade Brestois, it's been a blast watching them. From the time I was in Brest myself in May, speaking with Iroquois, Gregory Lorenzi, and Steve Mounier, to watching from afar as they won matches in the Champions League. They got that draw against Leverkusen. Beautiful stuff. One last surprise? I doubt it, but they have beaten the odds before. But hey, PSG in my books. Juve versus PSV is a tough one to call, isn't it? There's a few toughies to call in this, because PSV are once again at the top of the table in the Eredivisie, not as dominant as last season, however, and recently they've started to take some hits on their form, allowing Ajax to surge to within 2 points of them now. In the Champions League, they won their final 2 matches, lost to Stade Brestois in there also, and Juve at the beginning of the season. 4 wins from their final 5 matches was enough to see them through. Wins against Girona, Red Star, Shakhtar, and that final match day win over a heavily rotated Liverpool side. Unrecognizable Liverpool side. So like I was saying, they aren't flying under Peter Bosz as they were last season, but then again, Juve aren't really flying either under Thiago Motta. They lost their final match of the league phase against Benfica 2-0, in a match that was way easier than it should have been for a team that was visiting Juve, you know? And aren't exactly in good form, great form themselves in Benfica. But anyway, after that match against PSV, Motta said that Juve need to, quote, improve a lot of things. And as of now, it's hard to say whether they have actually done so. This past weekend, things looked very scary for Thiago Motta as they were losing 1-0 against Empoli. Funnily enough, though, De Sciglio with the goal for Empoli. But anyway, in the second half, they hit 4 past Empoli, so hey, they showed signs of life. They showed some bounce back ability, which I'll say a few times in this video, you watch. And they were spurred on by Yildiz and his roulettes. But a big signing has been Randal Kolo Muani, 3 goals in 2 Serie A matches, as Vlahovic has had major difficulties this season. A bit of Darwin Nunez to him this season, when it comes to missing easy chances and converting tough ones. But with Kolo Muani removed from that poor PSG situation, he seems to have taken to Juve immediately. But both sides aren't exactly incredible at the back right now. PSV have struggled to keep a clean sheet in their last 3 matches, and Juve showed against Benfica that they will give up good scoring opportunities. They show that against Empoli as well, a team that could be destined for Serie B if things go as they are at the moment. This one is kind of a toss-up, but it feels as though Juve has more issues than PSV do at the moment. PSV are less bad at the moment. But seriously, I found that comeback against Empoli, the score was inflated a little bit. They absolutely surged around Kolo Muani's goals, 2 and 3 minutes, and then they backed off again and let the minnows come at them a bit before scoring twice after the 90-minute mark. A strong team like PSV would punish them for that. And since PSV play at home in the second leg, I expect them to get it done there in a very, very, very tight tie. Atalanta versus Club Brugge, the Charles de Catalara derby, the Nero Blue versus the Black and Blue. Yes, Atalanta was so close to finishing in the top 8, man. They were up there for so long. But like their domestic form, where they topped the table at the end of December, they fell off a bit in their final 3 matches. Winning 1, drawing 1, and losing 1. Though I will say that loss was against Real Madrid, and if not for one of the worst misses you'll see this season at the death from Retegui, that match ends 3-3. The other draw, 2-2 away to Barcelona, so they had some tough opponents to close things out in the Champions League, didn't they? It's not like they were up against Slovan Bratislava and Young Boys and their plastic pitch. Actually, in fact, they spanked Young Boys on their plastic pitch 6-1. Now, if you've been watching the channel for the last 4 or 5 years, that's crazy, then you'll know that I have had a special place in my heart for Ladea and Gasperini. As annoying as Gasperini can be at times, as immature as he can be in getting himself sent to the stands or whatever, you cannot deny the brilliance he possesses. Through the club's incredible recruitment and having one of the best academies in Italy, I mean, at one time there were more Atalanta Academy graduates than any other club in Serie A, Atalanta have become European mainstays. Speaking of Europe, they of course are the defending Europa League champions, being the only team that defeated Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen last season, and 3-0 was the score there. Not bad. In Charles de Catalara, they have the assist leader in the Champions League, and Ademola Lookman. They have one of the best attackers in the competition and the African Player of the Year. And Matteo Retegui, they have a guy who isn't flashy, but has scored 16 goals in 21 Serie A matches. So they're a scary team. But in Club Brugge, you have a very difficult opponent as well, who was undefeated in 20 matches prior to their defeat against Manchester City last week. And even in that match, they showed how dangerous they could be on the counter. That front three of Yuskla, Zolis, and Talbi are a big problem. Speed and trickery, backed up by the service of Hans Van Aken. Defensively, they're quite solid as well, as beyond the Dortmund and Man City matches. I mean, the Dortmund match was at the very beginning of the campaign, by the way, but they had 3 clean sheets in their other 6 matches and conceded just 5 goals in that stretch, 3 of which were against AC Milan in one single match, so they're pretty decent defensively. After losing to City, though, they fell to Royal Antwerp domestically, and you have to wonder if this was the start of some sort of untidy form after that long spell of going undefeated. Personally, well, I don't see it being easy for Atalanta. I think they have more than enough firepower to overcome Club Brugge. This matchup is very even as well, as AC Milan is not at the peak of their powers in any way in any of the competitions that they play in, while Feyenoord are very difficult to get a read on them at the moment. Now, of course, their match against Lille was a bit of an outlier, a bit of a red herring, as they had quite a few injuries, including injuries that occurred within the match itself. Still, is that an excuse to lose that badly against Lille? Probably not. But looking at the other side of the coin, they also defeated Bayern Munich 3-0. And they had that comeback against Man City away, where they tied it up after going 3-0 down. Domestically, Priske has come under fire as Feyenoord are already 14 points off at the top. Not acceptable by the standards that Arne Slot set while he was with the club. They're winless in their last 4 matches in the Eredivisie. They also lost to Salzburg in the Champions League, which is unforgivable. Salzburg was so bad that they were essentially another free point side in the competition. So all of this to say, Feyenoord are hard to understand. And then you add to the fact that they have just lost Santiago Jimenez to AC Milan. Jimenez was Feyenoord's top scorer by a long shot with 16 goals in 19 appearances. Now he joins AC Milan to be their starting striker after the Alvaro Morata experiment is seemingly not working already. Man's been sent to Turkey and not for a hair transplant. They've also brought in João Felix on loan, Kyle Walker on loan, and Warren Bondo, a midfielder from Monza who replaces Benacer, who at the time of recording hasn't left yet for Marseille. But AC Milan have been busy supporting Sergio Conceição, which they have desperately needed to do, as they are, kind of like Feyenoord, a bit inconsistent, sitting almost 20 points off of the top in Serie A. To be fair to Milan, though, their Champions League form has been pretty solid prior to the very end of the campaign, where they lost to Dinamo Zagreb and gave up their place in the top 8 for it, where they could have finished 6th with a win there. Instead, 2 more matches added to their schedule, but prior to that, they had won 5 matches in a row in the Champions League to surge up the standings after losing their opening 2 games. As all over the place as both teams are, I think the additions that AC Milan have made will be just enough to see them pass Feyenoord. Plus, I have trust in Sergio Conceição when it comes to the knockout competitions. He's quite good in these situations. I was rooting for Celtic in this league phase, as they are a pretty fun team to watch, and now that they have Jota back, everything in this world feels right again, except for the fact that Kyogo left, which is quite the shame. He was prized away by Stade Rennais, which is definitely a loss, but he was having difficulty finding the goals in the Champions League. Mind you, Celtic in general weren't lighting it up on the score sheet. Anyway, Celtic's campaign saw them get thrashed by Dortmund 7-1, and then they also lost 4-2 to Aston Villa on the final match day, but they were otherwise pretty solid. Now, what I will say about them is that defensively, I do worry about them. As you can see from the scores I just mentioned, when they came up against the top teams in the competition, they crumbled big time. And Bayern Munich is absolutely one of the top teams in this competition. They certainly have one of the best attacks. And I say that with a bit of a weird feeling with Bayern. I wasn't really convinced by Kompany as a signing, but he's done just fine, hasn't he? Surprising myself, at least. Nothing incredible, but he's done fine. I mean, the loss against Barcelona and then the loss against Feyenoord certainly are dark marks on their Champions League campaign, but otherwise in the Bundesliga, they're getting things done. Just. Recently in the Bundesliga, they defeated Wolfsburg 3-2, Freiburg 2-1, and Holstein Kiel 4-3. So touch and go stuff and major defensive issues at the back for Bayern recently. So that's where Celtic can have some hope. Things aren't clicking at the back for Bayern in this moment, but they also boast a terrifying attack with the likes of Kane, Musiala, Olise, Coman, Gnabry. You don't want to see names like that on the opposition's team sheet though. Though hey, Holstein Kiel, a team near the bottom of the table in Germany, went from 4-0 down to 4-3 down in the second half. So Bayern will give you chances, and with Kim, Upamecano, and Neuer not at their best, with Davies injured, Leimer playing at right back, there's hope for the opposition. But I just don't think that Celtic have the ability to hold back Bayern's attack well enough. I don't know that they'll get blanked by Bayern. I think they'll score, but I can only see Bayern advancing. Benfica and AS Monaco. Well, Monaco has been one of my favorite teams to watch in this competition. I don't know why. I like watching Akliouche out there. What a player he's been this season. Similarly, Wilfried Singo's move from Torino to AS Monaco has been fun. The defender has even scored some bangers in this competition. They had a really rough patch in December and January that threatened to derail their season completely. Just 2 wins in 11 matches, but they have since bounced back, notably defeating Aston Villa in the league phase and then getting crushed 3-0 by Inter. Monaco ran into big issues in defense while their attack went quiet as well, and that's where the worry is for AS Monaco. Mbolo isn't exactly a bagsman. He won't light the world on fire with his goals output. Folarin Balogun is injured. Even the young up-and-coming attacker George Iladakena is also injured, so problems there. And then there's Benfica, who are all over the place. Even in our wins, they don't inspire a ton of confidence because we are seemingly begging to give up ridiculous goals. Remember the goal we conceded against Barcelona where Trubin, our keeper, fired the ball at Rafinha's head in midfield and it looped into our goal? This past weekend, we conceded free goals as well, one being a major giveaway, the other being a major deflection that found its way in. We also can't seem to defend set pieces very well. That's a major issue for us. So defending in general is not filling me with confidence. But then at the other end of the pitch, I can't complain when it comes to our attack lately. Our goals output has been much better recently. Pavlidis is starting to score more after a slow start at his new club. I forgive him for that. Di Maria still contributes with goals, Shelderup when he's allowed to play, etc. Now, given Monaco's lack of potency in the attack and the fact that Benfica has defeated Monaco already this season, I'll go with Benfica for this one. Not confident in either of these teams right now, but Benfica's ability to stumble through results this season has been quite fantastic. The players are playing for pride a bit here after the whole audio leaks thing as well, which, by the way, I did a video on that in case you missed it. And our final matchup, one of the coin flips of all coin flips for me. You'll see what I mean as I go through this. Now, before the Rudiger injury, I was very confident that Real Madrid would destroy this Man City team. And I mean, they do still have the ability to do so, but you cannot forget how instrumental Rudiger was to Real Madrid's ability to sit deep and defend against City last season when they had to. Something they cannot do with their current issues regarding injuries at the back. I mean, Alaba is their only fit, experienced center back at the moment, and he has just returned from injury. So Rudiger missing that first leg is huge. He might be back for the second, we'll see. But then you look at Manchester City, and it's not like they're good at defending either. They have been a nightmare at the back with their recent losses against PSG and Arsenal being the highlight of their woes. They switch off defensively, and the worst part seems to be their insistence on playing it out from the back, where they have caused more issues for themselves than anything. Now, the thing is, in order to cause them issues like that, you need to press them hard when they have possession in their own end of the pitch. But Ancelotti's teams don't really press that much, do they? So much of Real Madrid's hopes will be put to them putting them to the sword on the counter, right? Because we have seen so often how City are susceptible to quick counterattacks. Even Club Brugge were making it work against them, looking very dangerous on the counter. But if Real are playing on the counter, that means they'll invite City to attack them. And well, as mentioned, that back line is looking shaky. Lucas Vazquez on the right. Then you have David Alaba, who has just returned from a year off of an injury. Then maybe an academy graduate in Asensio or Tchouaméni playing back there, who hasn't excelled at center back this season as he had last season. and then likely Ferland Mendy on the left. This is not a team built to sit back, nor is it a team that presses very well. But all the same, you have Vinicius and Mbappe attacking that left flank where Matheus Nunes is doing a poor job in Walker's absence, which will be quite the sight to see. Walker always did a fairly decent job against Vinicius. Now Nunes has to put up with him and Mbappe. Now the thing is, City have shown that they are easily rattled, as they have failed to win after taking the lead first in 9 matches this season. 9. And Real Madrid is absolutely a team that has bounce back ability, and I can picture the City players losing their heads as they feel the control slipping from their grasp. That, plus the fact that the second leg is at the Bernabeu, bodes very well for Real Madrid. Now, I don't think either team would make it very far in this competition based on the sheer amount of personnel they're missing in Real Madrid's case and the identity crisis that City is having, where they haven't been able to beat any of the big teams in the Champions League. They only defeated Slovan Bratislava, Sparta Praha, and Club Brugge. I mean, Real Madrid to advance for me. But like I said, it's coin flippy, isn't it? All right, those are my takes on it all. What do you guys think will happen though? Thanks again for joining me here, and remember, join the Rabona TV community on BigUp for the watch-alongs. All right, guys, see you soon.